There's a million sales skills that you can learn. There's a million questions that you can ask, but you should always still be you. So if I talk in a faster pace and I really slow it down, then it's not going to sound natural at all, even if Jane, who's sitting next to me, does it this way.
Right. Meet Sam Berg, VP of Sales at Tennr.
The only thing that you're trying to do on a cold call is sound confident and not risky. So if if you're like going up like this and you're like, hey, this is Sam from Tennr or whatever, like doing it like this versus sort of laying back and being like, hey, this is Sam over at Tennr. Like, hey, this is a cold call, but I'm calling you for a very specific reason. That change in posture, that change in tone, that changes the way that you are interpreted on the other side. When I play my buddies in golf, there is nothing that I want to do more than to beat my friends in golf. But I want to beat them because I hit a 30-foot putt. I don't want to beat them because they made a mistake. And that is the way that it is at Tennr. Oh, you hit your quota by 150%? I am going to hit it by 151%. What are the 4 traits that I believe an excellent seller are going to have? The first 2 are things that anybody can do.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vibe Scaling podcast. My name is Chris Balestris, partner at Vibe Scaling. We're a go-to-market advisory, recruiting, investing, and media firm, helping seed through Series D companies grow. Vibe Scaling podcast is an intersection of go-to-market, AI, and startup topics where we interview the top go-to-market leaders at AI and SaaS companies. Hope you enjoy it. Just finishing up in an interview with Sam Berg, VP of Sales at Tennr, one of the hottest AI companies in the healthcare space. In the conversation, we walked through Sam's career arc where he started by selling tickets for the Islanders at Nassau Coliseum, then had a great 8-year run at VTS starting as rep and moving into a sales leadership role. As like a lot of the people we interview, was getting that bug to want to get into AI. And for the last year, has been running the sales team at Tennr. In the conversation, we talk about being overly transparent in sales to help break patterns, how he uniquely interviews salespeople, how Adam Grant and Chris Voss influence him on what words to say and not to say in sales. And we also jammed out on us being fellow New Yorkers, him being from Brooklyn, me from Long Island, and how my taste in food is a little bit subpar. I think I dropped that I really liked carbones, spicy rigatoni, and he redirected me to some other recommendations, which I appreciated. I really enjoyed this one, and I hope you do too. Sam, good to have you, man.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, we got to kick it off with, like, is it right of me to say that we're both Long Islanders, or do you not say that because you're from Brooklyn? Because I'm from Suffolk County. So what's the...
I would say that you are a Long Islander.
Got it,
You're
okay.
like a purebred Long Islander, not
right.
like, a Nassau County sort of softy or Suffolk
yeah, right.
blue collar type of guy.
Yep.
And then, I would say, even though I guess technically, like, is Long Island part of Brooklyn? Like, there's no
right.
water. But yeah, you're not from Brooklyn. And
right.
even if you lived in Brooklyn right now, I would say you're not from Brooklyn.
Right. Because I'd probably be in Williamsburg or something like. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
So that wouldn't really count. Now, I think I was telling you this last week. My grandparents immigrated. It was like a couple generations ago, but they were on President Street. But you said Park Slope. When I think Park Slope, I think of fancy. I think they lived on another side of President Street. Maybe it's like a long street that goes like, or maybe Park Slope wasn't as fancy back in the day.
Park Slope is like, there's like 8th Avenue and Prospect Park West.
Yep.
And then it goes technically, I guess, all the way down to like 2nd or 1st Avenue. I'm actually not 100% sure, but like from when I lived there, like my parents bought their house in like 1994.
Yeah.
Shame on them for one, making me a Jets and Islanders fan, but 2, for not buying real estate in Park Slope, because like the people that live on their block now, I don't think they could move back.
Right.
But like 5th Avenue got much nicer. President Street is like very nice though.
It is. Okay.
Yeah,
now
President Street is very nice.
I hear stories all the time of like, oh, we should have kept like the building that they lived in or something like that.
100%.
And can relate to the misery of I'm a Mets Jets guy, but Rangers Knicks. That's what I was born into.
Good.
So, but I mean, in Knicks, we trust. I think this is our year, at least get to the finals and then lose the OKC. But at the very least,
maybe.
Yeah, Jets Mets is a disaster right now. But
Knicks, we're recording this on December 17th. First championship in a while. So we're gonna put the rafter up for NBA Cup champions 2025. Let's go, baby.
Yeah. Slow little baby steps. Really appreciate that you're coming on, and let's kick it off with just a quick little intro into your background.
So Sam Berg, I'm the VP of Sales over at Tennr right now. I talk about this with my CRO who I've been working with for 9 years. Like I feel like I've been selling my whole life. Once I got out of college, obviously I was selling, but even before that, like doing like teen nights, selling, being a club promoter for teen nights when I was living in the city. So from a very young age, I've been selling. Started off on the sports side. I was selling tickets for the New York Islanders. Eventually moved over to Hightower, which was a VTS competitor. Hightower and VTS merged like 2 months after I started. And then I was at VTS and I had a pretty long run with them for about 8 years. And then made the shift to Tennr, which has been unbelievable. Different industry. I think the mechanics, the foundational stuff, like I believe it's fairly similar. So the transition has not been that tough. I always say to people that are going from a different industry, it's really just acronyms.
Right.
They sound. If I say
Yeah.
NER to you, you probably have no idea what that means. Net effective rent.
No.
That's
Yeah.
basically it.
Yeah.
If I say BAA, which is a form that needs to get signed for healthcare contracts, like people don't know what it is. As soon as you start to understand the acronyms, I think it becomes a lot easier, but can be overwhelming at the first onset.
Yeah, I mean, Tenner's one of these like darlings that I keep hearing on a lot of these lists and everything, and hearing really good things. I know you guys have a big New York City. I mean, you're HQ'd here, I believe. Yeah. So
got about 150 people in New York.
wow, that's crazy. I didn't even know it was that big. Yeah, interesting. Your time there, we got to dive in a little bit. So something we were talking about last week. So you were some of those first jobs. You were a club promoter, but then you start in your 20s. You graduate college, and you're selling family fun pack. Is that the Nassau Coliseum or Barclays or what
that
was
is the old barn? The
Okay.
Nassau Coliseum.
Yeah, hell yeah. And Uniondale, good old
In
Uniondale.
Uniondale.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did the Long Island Marathon once where I did I think that's where we started. It was like
It's right at the-
it
Poly.
was right at the Coliseum. So you were selling that, and tell us more, because that's like, I love hearing these stories of like, hey, this is my first sales job, and you had some interesting quotes from that. So tell us a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so muscle memory, but I came in, I haven't had like actual sales experience in the business world. Obviously, some like club promoting, but nothing like super serious. So I didn't really know what I was doing. So I leaned on people that were there. And when I started, I really wanted to get into sports. I played baseball in college. I always thought like getting into sports sponsorship would be interesting, and ticket sales was sort of the way in. But my first gig was not even full time. It was part time. I was making $8 an hour for a max of 30 hours per week. And then I would make 10% commission on family fun packs. What is a family fun pack? Well, when you're selling tickets for a team that is not the Rangers, and the team hasn't been good since 1990 at that time, family fun pack was 4 tickets, 4 hot dogs, 4 drinks, and a $10 gift certificate to Applebee's. And you could either buy upper level tickets in the defensive end zone for $99, or lower level tickets in the defensive end zone for $149. So I'd sell a lot of family fun packs.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, and this has kind of been a theme for me. Like, I took it very seriously. I did not work 30 hours a week. Like, I stayed for all the games. Everybody I sold a family fun pack to, I went to see them in their seats, asked them if they needed anything. Got a lot of repeat business as a result of that. Like, I took it very seriously, even though I was selling something that was maybe not that serious.
Yeah, and then something that was interesting, an early willingness to pay, right? You gave those 2 SKUs there. How do you know what someone's going to pay, right? What's this hack that you use of looking up people's addresses? I think this is, and how'd you even find this data back in the day?
Like, this is my first introduction to a CRM was Arctics by Ticketmaster. So
I didn't even know Ticketmaster had a CRM.
I mean, you can call it what you want to call it. It was a thing.
Excel,
but basically, anybody who had bought a ticket in the past, anybody who had purchased something at like the team store, that was a quote unquote lead for me.
Yeah.
Right. So I could see the games that they went to. I could see how many tickets they bought. But I also had that information, like I had their address. So I started to just go on Google Maps and look up their address and see what their house looked like, see if they were North Shore, Long Island, or if they were somewhere else. And I started like being specific about what I wanted to try to sell them based on game, based on date, and based on what I thought their house looked like to decide like, hey, I'm going to pitch you lower level or upper level tickets. Again, it was a difference of $50, which seems insignificant. But for me, I was just like, all right, let me try to be focused in my approach of what I'm going to try to sell someone.
Yeah, it makes sense. We'll get into this a little bit later of like what you test for when you're building on a sales team. It's preparation. So this was like early signs of like account prep and going into it and seeing
signs.
like, what it is that they either care about or that they could potentially afford, right? If a company just raises around of funding, it's like the equivalent of that a little bit. Before, I think like when we first met, I was super curious of how you made that transition into software. And this quote, I loved it. I wrote it down. I'm going to quote it right now. It's just, I don't want to sell glass seats anymore. I want to buy them. Very poignant statement. It's a very powerful statement that you tell us like, but how'd you even come to that conclusion and why software? Like, how'd you know, okay, software is like the way I can potentially do that?
I don't think I did.
Yeah.
Like I would have been fine going to whatever other industry there was. I think so again, after getting done with selling family fun packs, I sold group sales at the Islanders. And group sales was like a lot of like PTA moms that I would sell to. But there was this one package called Charity of the Game, which I really just like resonated towards. And Charity of the Game was you are selling a charity, a bunch of tickets, let's call it 200 because that was the minimum. 200 tickets, they would mark up the tickets. So if it was a $27 ticket, they would mark it up to, let's say, $45. Charity keeps $18 worth of that, and then they get access to the 50-50. They get like a portion of the 50-50 as Charity of the Game. So I resonated towards that, and that felt like much more of like a consultative sale to me. So maybe that was like an easy transition. Then I moved with the Islanders to Barclays Center. And at Barclays Center, I really had to learn how to like prospect. Because when I got to Barclays Center, there was already a staff in place that had gone there with the Nets.
I see.
And the Nets staff had like that, I mean, you talk about low-hanging fruit. It was like, hey, Company X, you just bought floor seats to the Nets. Would you like ringside seats to the Islanders?
Like orders, it's easy mode a little bit.
Easy mode. And I wasn't making crazy. I think I was making like $35,000 a year. And the commission structure wasn't as aggressive. I didn't have leads. And at that time, individually, despite the fact that I wasn't making a ton of money, I was like, I need to figure out a way to get direct contact information. So I bought ZoomInfo for myself at that time. And then what I did was I tried to figure out like, what is the industry that I can break into?
Yeah.
And I was like, where is the best place to do it? I started getting like fascinated with construction, general contractors, how they entertain. And the leads were all around me because I was living in New York. So I would like go for runs with my phone and just take pictures of like all of these different companies, plug that information into ZoomInfo, and then just call direct numbers of the CEOs of these companies and try to sell them. So that's how I like had success at Barclays, despite the fact that I feel like I was a little bit behind the eight ball in terms of what I could sell. And then eventually I was selling to someone and he worked for this company. It seemed very interesting to me. He seemed very successful. They had these ridiculous offices on like the 45th floor of the GM building, like overlooking Central Park. I was like, oh, this is success.
Right.
And he was like traveling one day and I was like, hey, your job sounds awesome. Like I'd love to like be traveling around. And then he called me back before he had bought seats. And he was like, he bought the seats, then called me, left a message. I believe I was at a Jets game. And it was like, hey, like you mentioned that you wanted to travel. I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about that. You want to come to my office? So I went to work for him for 8 months. And then my quote as I was leaving was like, I'm ambitious. It's tongue in cheek, but I don't want to sell. I want one of your reps to call me so that I can buy glass seats eventually. I don't want to sell glass seats. I want to buy them.
Yeah.
And then I made the move.
I love that. And then there was a company in between that and the company that ended up being merged with VTS, or this ended up like, what was the...
This was like a 8-month stint
Okay.
at me not understanding the startup world and not asking the right questions and getting like sucked in by a higher salary and really cool offices. Good learning experience for sure. It was my first time selling software at that point. And then when that ended, I basically had 1 month where I didn't have a job. I was still cheap. I had good experience. I started interviewing and it was like a stressful time because it was right before I was going to get married also. But I had 3 or 4 offers from a bunch of different places. I think I had just read David and Goliath. So I had like a big fish, small pond type of mentality. 2 of them were bigger companies. Hightower was like the smaller startup. And I was like, I'm going to go do that.
Tell me a little bit more of like Hightower when it ended up being merged with VTS, this sort of
vehicle, like software? What actually is the space and what those both played in? Or was it like building?
In like very simplistic terms,
Yeah.
commercial real estate's a very strange industry. So let's say me and you own 9 buildings in New York City.
Okay.
All right. So we're the owners of the building. Like we are the ones who own it. We get the revenues from it. We don't have an internal sales team. Our sales team are the brokerages in
Yeah.
New York City, JLL, Cushman, CBRE, Colliers. I could have 8 different teams selling space in that specific building. And the way in which they got leasing activity report, deal pipeline was through Excel spreadsheets.
Mm-hmm.
Hightower and VTS at its simplest form was a online platform where all of that leasing information went into the owner so they could understand what is happening in those buildings. This became a big thing because real estate has become so institutionalized. So in the past, it was, family run, family owned, and that type of information, it was basically an annuity. But when it became an investment vehicle, more data oversight was important for these groups like Blackstone that are used to having a bunch of information in front of them. So we became a very perfect fit for that time.
I see. Okay. Makes sense. And you had a great 8-year run there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to dive into these 3 inflection points. And you started as a sales rep. Looks like you were a
broker sales rep.
Selling rep.
Brokers.
And top performer there, worked your way into a leadership role. I think I'd love to dive into these 3 You brought up these 3 inflection points. And what's interesting about your career is throughout it, you went from ticket sales to then there was like a promotion there doing the group selling, and that felt more consultative. It feels like each step keeps getting more and more of that.
Yep.
Specifically, this inflection point 1 that went from, I think it was Josh Evans, who was your CRO, COO at the time. Tell us a little bit more of these 3 inflection points. We'll start with the first one with Josh.
Career progression and just like an acceleration point. Josh Evans would be the acceleration point. He came in, he was really successful in California. I actually forget the name of the companies that he was working for. But at the time that he came in, VTS was really selling features and FOMO. Real estate's very incestuous, so that was a successful strategy. But we were probably on the early stage of the buyer's curve. I don't know exactly what it looks like, but it's like innovators, leaders, laggards. We were getting past the innovators and leaders standpoint part of the curve.
Right.
And we needed to start selling outcomes. We needed to start focusing on problems. And Josh just brought a very simple methodology for what we're trying to understand in an actual process, which is why change now, why VTS, and why you. And that was the basis.
What were you guys doing before that? Because I would think that it was just, hey, we got this logo.
This?
Yeah.
And they're using
dangle this logo. It's like your direct competitor.
It's
a little simpler. And that worked for a little. Yeah.
It worked for a little. And don't get it twisted. It was still part of the strategy, right?
Yeah,
the FOMO element and fear. I have always believed that executives, they don't think about today. They think about what's happened in the past and what's happening in the future. And if there's risk associated with what's happening today versus what they want to get to in the future, that is when it's going to create this emotional reaction to, hey, I'm going to make a decision to change and buy software. Because implementing software sucks. Who would want to do that?
Yeah.
Right? So you need to have a real solid, pain of change is greater than the pain of not changing at all, which is something that Josh said 1 billion times.
What is this competency doc that Josh brought that you had said? And it sounds like you brought that to other areas.
Yeah, I mean, the root of the competency doc was the sale at VTS, and this was 2021, 2022. We were not doing $10,000 sales anymore. The minimum sale that we were making was in the $65,000, $70,000 range. And it was fairly enterprise in the way that we were doing that, the process itself. Our pipeline was SDR to AE. There was no SMB AEs or anything like that. So it was you're going right from making cold calls into enterprise sales process. We need a way to bridge the gap so that we can actually promote SDRs when they're ready. They can work on certain things so that when they get into an AE seat, they can hit the ground running. So that was this is why we need it. Why it was given to me personally, I wanted a promotion. I wanted to be promoted to director. Josh said, hey, the way that we're going to do things in the sales org is just because you are a top performer does not mean that you get a promotion.
Yeah.
You're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to create something that is not just applicable to your team. And you're crushing with your team. Like, you're doing a great job with your team. But being a leader is creating things and creating leverage so that the entire organization can get value from
It's
it.
this concept around like being a multiplier, right? How are you?
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So he challenged me to work on that. I worked on that with this gentleman named Zaki Khan, who's I think he's at Metropolis now, just like the parking technology
Oh,
company.
yeah.
It's pretty sick.
Yeah.
So Zaki and I worked on it, created it, presented it. The initial scope of it was SDR to AE. Then it eventually became the way that we coached, the way that we hired, the way that we put people on performance plans, like if they needed to be, and also the way that we would create a sales ladder, right? So the competency doc was made up of foundational competencies, which we'll get into when we talk a little bit more about like what I'm looking for from an interview standpoint.
Yeah.
Advanced competencies, which is again part of the traits that I'm looking for when I'm doing my interviews, and then complex. So we use that doc and basically said, like, based on where you are in these competencies, you're L1, L2, L3, L4 from an AE standpoint.
Yeah. Super structured.
Yeah.
Definitely more structured than I've seen at some other startups. So
yeah,
certainly impressive you guys had that. My thought is like, I didn't know too much about VTS coming in, but now you're running sales at a software company. What was like the difference in the sale, both maybe a pro and a con, not pro and a con, but like that was just so different than selling maybe enterprise software, like AI or
you're saying between VTS
and like,
Tennr?
let's say if somebody worked at, it could be Tennr or it could worked at like Sales Loft for
like a Gong or a Sales
yeah,
Loft.
exactly. Like what would be like the one thing that stood out that maybe made that sale a little bit different than your traditional software sale?
I almost would like flip that back to you. Like, what do you think? You probably have more experience. And
I mean, the reason why I asked that question is, does somebody who buys software for buildings, does it differ than you're selling software to a marketing buyer? Is it like, hey, you got to take them to a steak dinner. Hey, you have to like really fit. You can't be too polished in front. Like, are there little nuances like that you wouldn't know going in, but you realize? We hear this with insurance selling all the time.
Yeah.
Raph Parker, we interviewed, who runs sales at I think another health tech company.
Mm-hmm.
He had said, I actually had to hire people that looked a lot like my buyer, and that actually ended up being 55-year-old people that smoked a pack of cigarettes a day.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm curious if anything like that with nuance, or if it was like, hey, these deals, you have to do things a certain way.
So what I would say is actually the shift that was made at VTS when I first got there was when I got there, it was still very startup. I think we were Series B or Series C at that point, like still getting our feet in the ground, or I don't know, whatever the phrase is. It was a lot of people who came from real estate that were selling. And that created immediate credibility. But once we started moving to more of an enterprise motion, we saw that became a thing that actually did not work super well. So we started hiring people that came from software backgrounds that understood how to run an enterprise sales process.
I see.
Because at that time, right, we had already created credibility as like, we are a company that understands real estate.
Yeah.
And we understand real estate people. Now we needed people that understood how to actually run a sales process. So that was the shift at VTS. And it's really the same thing at Tennr. Like, we're not specifically hiring for people with healthcare backgrounds. Like, we're actually looking for folks that have come from startup worlds. And that might be the biggest difference in selling at like a startup to an underserved technology population like real estate, like healthcare. There's no budget. This product has never existed before.
I see.
There's no context on what it is. So we have someone who came from cybersecurity and he didn't like decks. And I was like, yeah, go ahead on your first call. Like, don't use a deck and let me know how it goes.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think it's going to go well though, because you're not creating context for them in terms of what we're actually going to be talking about, because they don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
You have a conversation with someone who's in cybersecurity or marketing that's bought a bunch of technology in the past.
I get it. You can jump into a...
I get it. It's like, hey, it's that plus you have this type of feature and this is why you guys are different. This is new. It's net new. You have to create context if you actually want to have a productive conversation. You need to earn the right to start asking questions. And you do that by creating context.
Yeah.
Some of it is credibility about what we're solving for. Some of it is the other groups that we're working with. Some of it is understanding like, hey, here's your current problems and here's your known solutions. This is literally how our deck looks.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is why we're different.
Something that I've gotten out of you, I mean, being from Brooklyn, but also just in our conversations, very direct to the point, but very, I mean, another way to put that in a positive, like, or that is, I mean that positively, is like very transparent, just calling it how it is. And you had these signs of transparency. This was like the second pillar I want to dive into. You brought up Todd Capone, which is funny. It went back to, I read his book, The Transparency Sale.
Great book.
And there was this concept where I think you guys brought him in for training.
We did.
This was the second pillar of like, how did you guys bring transparency to the org? Tell us a little bit more about what Todd brought to the organization.
Yeah. So I think it was only like, for what it's worth, there was like one session, right? Like he came in for a QBR. Josh knew him from one of his other companies. It was like, this guy is great. And it was initially billed to us as like, hey, this is how we're going to like start negotiating now. And this is actually like I almost think about it like an inbound sale. Like they're coming to you for one thing, and then you actually can help them learn about different problems and different things. So my main focus when he came in, similar to when I read Never Split the Difference, was I want to get better at negotiating. What Todd really walked us through was like transparency in the sales process. He talked about knowing your weaknesses, being proactive about maybe talking about your weaknesses. I coined, like, I always go to movies, like 8-miling yourself when you're in a competitive sort of situation.
Just be-rabbiting the situation.
Yeah, just be-rabbiting. Like, hey, I know what they're going to say about me. I know this, I know that. And by the way, if that's the thing that's really important to you, then you should go with them because they're better at it. But if this is the thing that's important to you, this is why we're different. And in general, the way that I thought about sales, and we did this on our first conversation, was like a walking meeting.
Yeah, this was also something that was unique.
I think about
like
this
we're going to walk for this. I was like, oh, okay.
It's like symbolically, right? Like in a sales process, before pricing, your enterprise sales process, that is, like you're working together with this company and you're trying to solve problems together. They're giving you information, you're giving them information, you're talking about ways to solve problems, you're talking about future state, like you're very open and you are very, very literally like walking towards something together. What happens without the transparency negotiations that Todd talks about is that once you get to the pricing conversation, it's like literally me and you at other sides of the table, right? I'm being closed off about what you can get. You're being closed off about what you want to ask for. And what I really think is valuable about what Todd talks about is like you are creating guardrails. You're creating additional context on this is how we create concessions for you. Mm-hmm. We are going to create concessions for you, and you have the ability to get them. But if you want to get them from us, like here are the 4 levers that we care about. We care about volume being like the amount of products that you're buying from us or how much volume you're actually committing to at the onset. We care about the timing of signature, right? Like being a VC funded company, like being predictable about our revenue is extremely important. So happy to pay you in the form of a concession if you can help us with timing. We care about length of agreement, very similar predictability, and we care about timing of cash. So you create those guardrails, you create that framework, and then you're helping your customer understand, like, this is how I get a better, I hate the word deal, but like, this is how we get the better deal from this company. And then in future conversations, you reintroduce the levers, ad nauseum, levers. So we immediately started adopting that.
Yeah.
Like me, Mark, Josh, Eric Doran, who's still at VTS, like that became the way that we are going to talk about pricing with our clients. And I think our clients really appreciate it as well. To a certain extent, especially in commercial real estate, right? These are people that think they are the best negotiators in the world. So there's also like a pattern break.
Oh yeah, you throw them off totally.
It's like, oh,
like, wait, you're giving me the answers to the test. It doesn't feel like
exactly. Like, no, I want to negotiate, and you know they would still.
No, we're supposed to hate.
Still want to get a little bit. Still want to get a little bit more,
here.
But like even if they ask for a little bit more, it's like, okay, we're aligned on end of December. Like, could we do it this week?
Yeah.
Type of situation. Like, I wanna give that to you. Let's think about the levers as a way to get you what you want.
We're when we were talking about this a little bit more, because I used to use this in Salesforce. I used to say, "Hey, this is what we care about," or these are the ways that. I think we did use levers, but when we were talking, I used the word deal. You're like, I would never use that word. We're going to talk about that in a little, because I really am interested And like, what are the phrases that you can use to make it less transactional, less salesy, and more of like, this is going to be a partnership? So we'll definitely dive into a little bit more of that. I think, that was a really interesting point, this whole transparency piece. Paradoxically, how sales rep says this, and it's like now they're viewed as like, it's like, how do you become consultative? This is a way that you do that. You don't sound like everybody else.
For sure.
Then COVID hits. I mean, you had like a long run there. And then this third inflection point, you kind of put me a little bit of a mental pretzel with the external, internal change. So rather than me have some thoughts here, I'm just going to flip it over to you. This third inflection point of these change agents. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I think in general, people will move faster on things that they feel like are out of their control, right? Like it creates this emotional reaction. Your lizard brain is going off. Like there's a fear element to what's happening.
Mhm.
And that can happen like if it's something happening within your company, but it really presents itself when it is an external factor that you can't control. So in general, an enterprise sale is like you're solving against an internal change, right? And those processes are methodical, they're super important, but you're not going to tap really into the lizard brain, and the process is going to go at the speed it's going to go. But there's a lot of things that happen internally that can be changing. Like there could be new targets that have to get hit. There's new executives that can come into an organization that want to change. I guess technically that could be external as well. But specifically for VTS, like this concept of an external change was COVID happened, and we were selling to commercial real estate owners. What do you do when you want to see a building? You go tour it. You can't tour it because 2 weeks to curve whatever it was called, right? Like there was no touring activity that was going on. So what are you going to do at that point? We happened to have a product that was coming back but was deprecated for a while. It's actually how VTS started. It's called View the Space. Video touring to show tours. And this external factor of no one can tour anymore and there's nothing that we can do as a ownership group to make people actually come in and tour. This external change that was happening made it so this product was like oh, you have this? I need tours. Can we sign the contract this week?
Yeah.
So whenever I'm having a conversation, I am looking for external cues that I can work towards and bring it into the evaluation, because those external things that are sort of out of your control, those are the things that are going to actually make people want to move faster in terms of solving the problem that's going on.
What is that right now in healthcare with AI that you guys are potentially using?
I would say that external factors in healthcare are the fact that there are shrinking reimbursements across the board.
Okay.
Right? So like that's not something you can control. Federal government and commercial payers, they're the ones who can control that. If I'm a durable medical equipment owner, I don't control the reimbursement rates. I just don't. There's admin costs, which are continuing to go up, even though reimbursements are staying the same or shrinking. And then there's honestly just like finding labor in general. Like the jobs are very difficult. A lot of times our clients are in rural sort of areas. So finding talent is very difficult, especially when we think through the groups that we're working with that are consistently trying to grow.
Yeah.
So those are external factors. It's like, here's the game that we're playing. We're all playing it. We can't change the rules. Now let's go focus on some of the things that you actually can be in control of, like your internal operations. And how do we make those better so that you can play against the game, which is everyone's playing the exact same game.
Right. Well, before we move off of that, I mean, what are parts of this internal change as it relates to like enterprise selling that you use? Is that just what a company cares about, or what's
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like if a new executive comes in, if there was a new round of funding, if there's growth that's happening, if you see that their employee count is going up, if they have multiple locations, if they've done different acquisitions, like you can see internal changes that are happening throughout just Googling a company or using ChatGPT, whatever you want to use to do your research. Like there are a lot of internal changes that you can see from the outset. Then it's actually understanding like, oh, what does that mean? Okay. We've got to hit 10 million in revenue in the first 2 quarters of 2026. Okay, what's preventing you from actually doing that today? And then I try to go a layer deeper. Like, what if you don't hit 10 million? Is it just like, it's too bad? Or does that actually impact your ability to
Right.
fundraise? Does that impact your ability to maybe go out and sell your company at a higher multiple? Like, it's a $10 million problem, but is it a $200 million problem if you don't get to that 10 million? Like, I try to continue like peeling back the onion to understand the severity of the problem.
It's like, it's amazing that like, or it's been really interesting to see kind of your progression from like nightclub to ticket selling to then you're reading books on David and Goliath and all that.
I was not a very good club promoter.
Yeah.
Just to be clear. There's a story about that one as well. But
And then like, you know, the thing is just how tactical you get of like, it's clear with your professional development. And it was like very awesome to hear that as we were like, getting to know each other a little bit more. You're at VTS for 8 years. I mean, when did you start to be like, okay, AI is a thing and I had a great run and maybe there's time for a change. I know Mark, who's a mentor of yours from VTS, and it sounds like you reported to him. Sounds like he went over to Tennr and has
he was
tales old as time that sometimes, you know, you bring your gals or guys or folks with you. So how did that, you know, before we get into a little bit more of some other topics, like how did that go?
It's funny, like I wasn't like specifically looking for AI. Like I think I was looking for a company that was solving a problem. And I've always been drawn to maybe like unsexy industries. So like
It's interesting. Why is that? Because I'm the opposite. I'm a sucker for like competitive markets.
I don't know. Like I don't know why I'm drawn to it. Maybe it's just like the people that I get to have a conversation with. Like there's 2 companies that I found interesting like when I was doing my search before Tennr. There was one that was like selling laundry machines to apartment buildings and just like making that process better. And I was like, that's pretty interesting to me. And then there was like this junkyard software company. And I was like, also interesting. Junkyards are everywhere. They probably don't have a ton of technology to support what they're doing. So I've just always been drawn to like industries like that, vertical industries. For some reason, I don't specifically know why. But in terms of like the why Tennr, I had an ICP for the company that I wanted to go to. I wanted to go to a company that was like Series A, Series B.
Yeah.
That implied to me that there was already some product market fit. And also my most enjoyable time when I was at Hightower and VTS was in that sort of stage of company where everyone seemed to be very focused on a singular mission and marching towards that. So that was very important to me. I wanted more sort of technical co-founders, and Trey, Diego, and Tyler were the co-founders of Tennr, like just so unbelievably impressive. And I just wanted to be in an environment where I think they always want the product to be the best part of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like music to your ears as someone who's trying to sell it.
100%.
3 for me as a leader and like the stage of company that I was looking for, the type of sale that I like, I really wanted an in-person collaborative environment. I felt like that was just a very important thing for how I was going to be able to coach, how I was going to be able to teach, how are we going to be able to be successful. And then honestly, like the cherry on top for me was like, can Mark and I sort of run this back? Tennr hit all 4 boxes.
Yeah.
So pretty easy choice.
It's amazing. So you get there, and what employee were you? You said you guys just hit 150 or something like that. What were you?
I do have his first name at Tennr. So like one of those. I think I was maybe like in between 50 and 60.
Got it. Okay.
Something like that.
Nice.
Yeah. So
All
pretty young, and we've already moved offices 3 times this year. I started on January 6th of 2025. So we were in the Chelsea Castle, which is on like 22nd and 7th. Then we moved to 275 7th Avenue. We were on the 11th floor for like a month, and now we're up on the 21st floor. So it has been a whirlwind of an experience.
So I've heard from a lot of people in my network, which is why I was really excited to have you on.
Yeah.
And all right, so you got there, January 6th comes in. You probably get the note of like, we got to hire. We got to start bringing in. What were maybe some of the initial, outside of that, before we go into like how you hire and how you started to build the team at Tennr, what were some like immediate things that you had to block and tackle a little bit when you got there?
From a like just learning healthcare to a certain extent, not feeling like I was the dumbest person in every room that I walked into, which
it was
back to the
acronyms. You just got some flashcards. You're like, hey, like, I'll throw out some
ICD-10 codes, like things of that nature. Prior auths, what is that?
Yeah.
Like I remember Mark telling me, because he was there for basically a month before I started, he was like, just get prepared. Like this place it's it's energetic. Like you're gonna feel tired. And I was like, yeah, but like I was at VTS during some like really exciting time, so I felt like I was prepared. I actually equate it to when I saw I saw Hamilton for the first time. Um, I was told this is the best thing ever, and everybody kept saying that. And I was like, "There's no way that this could live up to the hype."
Yeah.
And then I saw it, and it was better than
Wow.
anything I had ever seen.
I would agree
It
with
was
that too. I
better than
finally
the
saw it
expectations
last year.
because I
Yeah.
hadn't experienced anything like that before, so I had no frame of reference to understand it. Like the first day that I got there, it was just like music playing. Holy shit! Like this place is just insane. There's just so many smart people that are working here. Like you start to have like some anxiety. Do I belong here? Like I feel like everyone is better than me, even coming in as a leader. And it took probably like 2 or 3 weeks for me to like start feeling a little bit comfortable. I will say that frame of reference really helped me with the new people that we're hiring
Mhm.
because I can see when someone comes in, they are also experiencing Hamilton for the first time.
I love
So
that.
I like to talk to them and just be like, hey, this is normal. Like, you are going to feel this way. Like, expect it. I'm not saying it's going to be fun, but this is all like normal course of business when you're coming into a place that is as exciting as Tennr is. So that was the first part. I immediately kind of like started getting into hiring, and it was really for SDRs to start. And that's what I came in to do was manage the SDR team and a couple of AEs. And essentially, our thought process was we would like the SDRs to be our bench for our future AEs.
Mhm.
And that was the initial prognosis. That was Mark's plan. And we immediately started to try to execute against that.
I love that. I love the Hamilton analogy. Part of when you were saying that, what I was thinking in my head was the first time I ever had Katz pastrami or even the spicy rigatoni at Carbone. A million people told me it's the best. It's so good. It's
Yeah.
like amazing. And I was like, great. This is just going to be another place that like I go to, and it was unbelievable. Both those.
We
So,
defer on Carbone.
Yeah,
I actually
yeah,
think Carbone's a little overrated. Teresi, on the other hand,
yes.
that place is.
I have a very unsophisticated food. I will eat anything. So I'm not
Yeah.
the right person, and I love when people push me back like that.
I've
Yeah.
had it, man. Like
Yeah.
my first time trying a banh mi sandwich. Like
Yeah.
that was like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do you got here?
Yes.
Pate and pickled carrots.
Yes.
Is unbelievable.
That's
But
funny.
yes, yeah.
Well, you'll have to give me your list after this
I
because
will.
you're the real
I
like
can
New
give you-
Yorker
I'm a
with
big
a lot of
foodie.
this stuff.
Yes.
So you get there, the energy's great at Tennr.
Yep.
And you get, hey, I got to start hiring. Let's dive into like how you interview and like
Yep.
what were maybe some of the learnings. I'm sure at first, you're a better interviewer now than you were. Like, what were some of those learnings? And then we can transition into like just how you interview salespeople now. But take that how you want.
At VTS, I hired a couple of people.
Yeah.
I interviewed a bunch. Within my first like 3 weeks at Tennr, I interviewed more people than I had in my entire stretch
Wow.
at VTS. And every interview I did was just like a different types of questions that I was asking. And also towards the end of the day, like I feel bad for maybe some of the people. I don't think I ever like didn't bring someone in that deserved to get in, but like at the end of the day, after doing like 5 or 6 interviews in the day, I don't think I was at my best. I was a little bit more tired, and I just didn't have a framework for myself to actually be able to do interviews in the way that I wanted to, in the way that honestly I would say Tennr would expect me to do them. So 3 weeks, I was like, all right, what am I testing for? Let's go back to the competency doc.
Mhm.
What is the competency doc? It's 90 different competencies. What are the 4 traits that I believe a good seller, a great seller, an excellent seller are going to have? The first 2, and I really do believe this, like in terms of like team building, like you need to get character people into your organization. The first 2 are things that anybody can do, and that is being disciplined and being curious.
Mhm.
That's it. So the foundational competencies in the comp doc, they are all based on discipline and curiosity. And really anybody can be both of those things. So I was like, all right, what am I going to do in my interview process to test for discipline and curiosity?
Yeah.
Especially because at the time I was just interviewing SDRs. I eventually started interviewing enterprise AEs and strategic AEs. So I needed to add another layer. Let's go back to the competency doc.
Mhm.
What are the advanced and complex competencies, and what are the traits that we're looking for? We're looking for active listening, critical thinking, and pattern recognition. So how do I test for those specific things? And I just started thinking through the way that I would ask those questions to uncover those specific traits that I believed were super important to a salesperson. For an SDR, if you have discipline and curiosity, like that is all that I'm really looking for. Everything else is gravy. If you were coming in as an enterprise AE or strategic AE, I'm looking for those two traits no matter what. And then I'm looking for critical thinking, active listening, and pattern recognition.
I'd love to dive into how do you define discipline? Like, discipline makes sense to me. I want to jump into the curiosity piece.
Yeah.
Like, how do you actually, other than like they asked me questions, and it's because I hear this all the time. Not everybody, but like a lot of people say, I want people who are curious, and everybody has a different way of how they test for that.
Yeah.
What specifically can someone do to show they're curious in an interview?
Well, I think one, you can ask like very thoughtful questions when it's your turn to sort of ask questions in the interview process. Like I think that's very important. So like be specific about the types of questions that you're asking. Like don't ask questions like, oh, what's the team size? Or like things like that. Like that doesn't show a level of curiosity to me. Like what does show a level of curiosity to me is like, hey, like I know you guys are a newer company. Like you guys are you're ramping AEs very consistently. Like how do you ramp them in general? Like, what are the things that you're actually trying to teach them in those first couple of months? And how do you know when someone is fully ramped? Like, what are the things that you're looking for that help me help that rep understand and you understand that they're actually ready to go? That's a thoughtful question, in my opinion. I also go back to like curiosity and coachability, I think are somewhat interchangeable. I always ask people like, I want coachable reps. I'll ask you like, what do you think coachable? Like, what's coachable mean to you?
I think the ability to kind of be humble in the moment, getting feedback, and then actually taking that feedback and implementing it in a timely enough fashion to create a quick feedback loop.
Yeah. I would say the first part, like being open to feedback's one of the words I actually don't like.
I'm really pumped to get it because I say all these words that you're like, dude, stop saying it.
I think feedback generally has a negative connotation, whereas advice is a little bit more like,
got it.
It's positive, but there might be some negatives in there. So like being open to that, table stakes, do not care. I don't care. Actively seeking coaching, that is 40% of what I think about when it comes to coachability. And then the second part, 60%, is how you take that coaching and how do you implement it and how quickly do you actually implement it.
You ever see candidates that show this in the process and maybe they had a B performance, but they're showing this of getting this, I won't say feedback, I'll say advice.
Yeah.
Throughout it? Like what do top candidates do that maybe they can overcome?
Well, I think whenever someone asks me for feedback at the end of the interview, and this is something that Mark told me, which is like sort of radical candor.
Yeah.
I don't say, oh, it went well. I like tell them everything that they could have done better.
I appreciate that you do that because we run a recruiting business along with some of the other lines of business, and most companies don't give feedback. They just don't give it at all. And then, if they do give it, it's positive, or if they give it, trying to give it critically, it's like not actionable enough.
Yeah, so I'm just like very like if you ask, I'm going to tell you exactly what it is, and then a lot of times like I can you asked, so that's cool. Like that's first part of coachability,
right? And
then two, like in a follow-up email, which I actually think is like not really a thing anymore. Like I don't get follow-up emails all the time, but if you take that,
how often are you getting? Because I'm so surprised by this. I keep hearing this.
I don't really care anymore. Like I think it's like not like the biggest thing in the world, but
aren't you worried though that person's not going to do a follow-up in sales after a call?
I mean, technically you could say like, I don't love it. Right. But like, I think it's just like how people were taught. I was taught to send follow-up emails. I don't know.
I feel like we all were taught. I think what happened that it fell out of fashion?
But like, again, I'm 35. I'm ancient in this world today, right? So like,
I'm not too far.
I think it could just be like a product of the environment. But if you ask for feedback, I give it to you.
Yeah.
Like a follow-up email where you're calling out some of those feedback, you're recalling some of the conversation that we had. Like those are all things that are positive to me.
What's something that good AEs do that just miss the mark? They do obviously if somebody bombs it, that's one thing, but there's a lot of candidates that get to a final round and don't get it. What are some of the things that come to mind that typically happen that they just miss getting an offer?
Just miss getting an offer?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a good question. Like for it's really like we are like a hell yeah hell no.
I see. So it could just be that a lot of people or some people liked this candidate and some didn't have full consensus. And it's just like we had other candidates that we were fully hell yes on.
If it's, exactly. And like, for what it's worth, like Mark and I guess from working for so long, like we have very similar like sort of thought process. I think we've been pretty much aligned on every single candidate. We're just trying to level up when it comes to new people that are coming through the door. Like, are they better or are at the same level of the people that are already here? How would they fit into this environment? Do we believe that the skills that they've developed in their other jobs are transferable? And that's really what we're looking for. The presentation itself generally will highlight that. The questions that you ask, how you interact, like I'm not going to give away sort of like the trade secrets of like what we do in the final presentation, but we try to make it as easy as possible. We don't make people sell Tennr, right? I think that's like, you're setting people up to fail. I did have one candidate.
But some people I've heard both sides where they want you to do it because they know you're not going to know a lot and they want to see how you do under a period of
but I don't like that because I would never have a ramped rep. Like I would never have a rep just go selling something that like, it's not the actual way that like.
Do you have them sell their product?
I would actually have them sell like you got this out of me. Like just a general sales product that like people would know.
Got it. Okay.
Sales loft.
Got it.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Treat me as if I was that person.
The what I've heard, and I would tend to agree with this, is that salespeople can be very performative and great at selling themselves. So would you worry that, have you had a situation or would you worry that they're just, like how do you get around the people who are there tests in the interview process that allow you to like,
I think
squirm a little
I
bit?
think my initial interview is very much like I'm testing for those disciplines. Like
I say.
What'd you do to prepare for this interview? What are the people that you researched? Who are the people that you researched? What's the company? Like, what did you learn about our company? What are one or two things that were interesting about what you learned that you'd like to share? And then if it's an AE, I would say, okay, let's say that we were part of your book of accounts that you're trying to sell into. Why or why wouldn't we be an ICP? In that one question, I'm testing for discipline. Are you going to show up for calls? And you're going to actually do like at least like a modicum of research before you go into that call, specifically in vertical selling. Like you have one at bat, like it's not baseball. Like you need to show up to every at bat with a plan and you need to have an idea. You have to have a hypothesis. Why are they talking to us? What are some interesting things that I can call out? I'm testing for that just in like did you do anything before this interview? Or are you going to try to like sweet talk me? Because I don't care about the sweet talking. I'm literally just testing for it.
Do you have candidates that try to squirm their way out of it where they didn't do a lot of prep, but they like try to,
Yeah, and I can like easily
totally.
call that out.
They might not know it, but you're going to be
in that question, I'm testing for discipline, and then I'm also testing for critical thinking. You took all that information. Why or why wouldn't we be an ICP for your company? That's number one. With curiosity, I've told you this, like I give like this sort of like long spiel about, I've been in sales for a while and, I think 95% of what I've learned has happened on the job. But what I've seen with my peers, my colleagues, my mentors is that, the top performers, what they do off the field is what differentiates them among other things. And then I go, so I've read these books. I've read sales leadership books. I've read, books that make me think differently about different topics, like sort of Gladwell, Adam Grant type of books. And then the occasional meathead, David Goggins type of self-help book as well. I tell them like podcasts. And then I say, and then there's some people, no offense to anyone who's listening right now, there's some people on LinkedIn that I don't find completely insufferable that do provide value from time to time. And that's my frame for the question. And I say all that to lead it back to you. Like, what are some things that you've done outside of your actual job that have helped you develop your skills?
I see.
So if you've done a bunch, like that's great. And that does show me a baseline level of curiosity, right? If you haven't done a lot, that's also fine. Like I'm not going to like completely judge you because you haven't done that. But are you going to show some curiosity and maybe ask a question like, well, what have you read? And I ask the question very specifically to open it up to say, what are some things that you've done? Like, what are some things that you would recommend?
Yeah.
From a reading standpoint, from a listening standpoint, from a people that you don't find completely insufferable.
I'm going to test my own curiosity in this interview, and I'm curious of what you mentioned a few books here. What's like your Mount Rushmore of most influential books, sales, or even some of the Malcolm Gladwell, and then also podcasts that you're consuming right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say like. Again, it's like very standard. It's Mount Rushmore, so that's 4.
Yeah.
Like, I think Outliers was like the first one that I read, and I just found it very interesting. Like, actually, David and Goliath was probably better. Like, there's like the chapters on dyslexia and people that have like been successful despite having dyslexia. Just the story of David and Goliath, especially if you're like selling into an industry where you need to just think differently about like how you're actually going to have those conversations. From a sales specific standpoint, Never Split the Difference to me, that was like the inbound sale book where I was like, hostage negotiator.
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn how to close hard.
Yeah.
That is not the thing that I took from that book. The thing I took from that book was tone, language, words that you actually use, how to get information from someone without them feeling like you're actually pressing them for information. It was the best discovery book that I've ever read. It was the best book in terms of team selling that I've ever read. Like, he has a whole thing of like, you could be the best hostage negotiator in the world, but 8 ears on a call is much better than 2, right? You might hear something on a call that I didn't hear. You might hear it in a different way, and that could lead to us understanding things in a much better way. It's like Never Split the Difference to me is like just I became a much better seller as a result of that specific book. Honestly, 127 Hours, which is the book about the guy who was rock climbing, like perseverance, just like
drinking his own pee and stuff. I just remember that being
like
I didn't read it, but I sure
getting in the mud. Like that book like has stuck with me, and I like we do spirit animals at Tennr. Mine is a cockroach.
Interesting.
And why am I a cockroach? It's like, well, they're ugly. They're often underestimated, but they never die. And sometimes they can fly.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a cockroach.
Yeah.
And then the fourth to round out the Mount Rushmore on the leadership side. Honestly, Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. I think that's been a book that's like really resonated with me.
I love it. Want to ask you for more than just the four, because I feel like you, want to consume some, even like the Adam Grant stuff. I've always heard of it and don't really know much of it, but it's the Never Split the Difference, awesome book. And the thing I loved about it was just how it was like, hey, I can show you how to, I took it away more as a sales book. I love that you took it away as more of a tone and language, because it's clear that I'm using terms like deals and feedback and all that. This is the part of the interview that like I was so pumped to ask you about with like some remaining time, is how you've gotten very like deep on the wording and the toning. I feel like no salespeople think about this, but this is so important. So go a little bit deeper of what you mean by this, because you mentioned this a couple times.
When I watch SDRs as an example, like make their initial calls, and like the only thing, and I learned this when I was at the Islanders, like we had someone come in, like the only thing that you're trying to do on a cold call is sound confident and not risky. It's pretty much it. So if your calls, if you're like going up like this and you're like, hey, this is Sam from Tennr or whatever, like trick that they're doing, like, hey, this is a cold call, but don't hang up. There's a very specific reason that I'm calling you. Like doing it like this versus sort of laying back and being like, hey, this is Sam over at Tennr. Like, hey, this is a cold call, but I'm calling you for a very specific reason, right? Like if you don't mind, like I'd love to share for 30 seconds why. That change in posture, that change in tone, even that change in cadence, that changes the way that you are interpreted on the other side. So I think that's just very important. Like you can match people's tones, which, Chris Voss talks about in that book all the time. Like if I'm leaning back, you're more likely to lean back. If I lean forward, you're more likely to lean forward.
Right.
There's like the yawn test to see if someone's a sociopath. Like if you yawn in front of someone and they yawn back, like they're sort of pattern matching you type of thing. So there's just a lot of things that you can do with tone. I have had to dial back like my hand movements. I move my hands a lot. I get called out. Mark likes to call he likes to call me sausage fingers. Yeah. Because I got big, thick hands. But yeah. I think it's very important.
I love this point because I've sold to the business persona as well as developers before. And the way I talk and just the way I like project, it aligns more with like maybe somebody who's been in sales or marketing, a little bit more higher energy. When I started to sell to developers, holy shit. It would like, I instantly came off way too salesy.
Yeah.
And I had to be a little bit more like, lower toned, and that was the feedback I got. And who knows if I believe it to be that it was successful, but it just makes sense, right? And it's not until you either read that or you get this sort of feedback that you know how to do that, because you just would always think like, no, I'm always going to sound like as much as a politician as I possibly can. I'm in sales, and it's like no, you have to really match that because people aren't going to accept you. And
the other thing, like, and this is why I try to do more like tone and posture and cadence, is you should always still be you, right? So if I talk in a faster pace and I really slow it down, then it's not going to sound natural at all, even if Billy or Jamie or Jane, who's sitting next to me, does it this way.
Right.
Like being yourself and sounding genuine, like those are, there's a million sales skills that you can learn. There's a million questions that you can ask. There's a million ways that you can work through an actual sales process and leverage people internally. But you have to be like, you are uniquely you. And I always coach that with my people, is like, be yourself. Sure, take things that you hear in calls, but don't try to sound like me.
Right.
Because you're going to come off as not genuine. And you have to build trust in a sales process. And not being genuine, sounding risky, is the easiest way to erode trust and not get to the end goal that you and your customer hopefully are working towards.
Yeah, all makes sense. What are the words? This is like the point that, okay, so I can't say deal. I agree that sounds transactional.
Yeah.
The feedback piece is interesting. That to me seems pretty.
I took that from Adam Grant.
Okay, interesting. What's this book that I have to? Was there a certain book that or is he just tweeting a bunch of stuff? Or
I am blocking out now on the name of the book where he talks about this. It's I think it. I
but
honestly,
it's in one of his.
It's in one of his books. It's
what are the words?
The
then?
concept of the book basically is like, it's literally not about where you finished. It's about where you started. And like that gap in development is the thing that's actually impressive in terms of like thinking about someone's ability. So like if you are born on third base and you eventually hit a home run, like that's great. And I'm not discounting that in any way. But what's more impressive is someone who's down 0-2 at the plate. Garrett Cole's injured. Paul Skeens is on the mound and you hit a double or a triple. Like in that sort of
completely agree with you.
So he just talks about feedback versus advice in that book, and I kind of resonated to it because I like language. Yeah, I don't like using the word deals. Like
give me the rattle. Yeah, rattle off some words off the top of your head that people could maybe, hey, instead of this, try this, or
like deals, partnership, cheap versus inexpensive.
Yeah, right.
Inexpensive is just it costs a little bit less. Cheap is like the way in which it is made. It is cheap. Like when I moved into the city, my wife and I bought cheap towels, and those lasted 6 months, and then we had to buy expensive towels. So cheap versus inexpensive, though, if I'm talking about competitors, like I will switch that. Like I will say their solution is definitely cheaper than ours. Like, but there are ways that we can make our solution a bit more inexpensive. So
okay,
like
wow,
I can try to interchange that a little bit.
Tell me about the feedback versus advice one. I haven't heard this one.
So what he says is basically whenever like you're giving feedback to someone, it's always negative. It's like, you could have done that better. You could have done this better. Whereas advice is like, hey, here are some things that you actually did pretty well in this conversation. Here are some things that you can work on. And if you work on these things, like it's going to make your conversation sing.
Could you make the argument though that if you're not asking for advice, like when I think of advice versus feedback, like a manager is supposed to give me feedback in my opinion, versus if I don't ask for advice, it's unsolicited. It's like a whole thing that might not be real.
That's true. I guess you could say like if you were going to give unsolicited, like if I say I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice versus unsolicited feedback, like that might sound, I don't know. I still think feedback sounds negative, whereas advice is like, hey, I'm mentoring you here a little bit. Like I want you to get better. I don't just want to tell you the things that you did wrong. I think Chris Voss talks about how and what questions, like that's how you ask questions, is how versus what. Whereas like a why question is accusatory, right? So if I say, why'd you do that?
That we're aligned,
Like my dad used to say, why'd you do that all the time, right? I was like, I don't know, because I suck. But
in that example, what would be a good question to ask instead?
What's the reason that you did that?
Okay, got it.
Like, what were you thinking when you did that? Why were you thinking that when you did it?
Yeah.
Like, how would you have gone about that differently?
I say.
Like those type of things.
We have a minute left, but could talk to you for a whole other hour on this stuff.
Yeah.
This has been great. For the folks listening that are about to do an interview with you at Tennr, what spirit animals, what type, is it really smart bunch of builders and grinders? Like what, in a couple sentences, is the team that you're trying to build at Tennr?
People ask me like, what's the sales culture that we're trying to break? And I really, like, yes, I'm looking for discipline. I'm looking for curiosity. I'm just talking like generally now, like why is Tennr a great place to work? And what is the actual thing that we are, like, what is the culture? And I think it permeates across the organization. But I hate using sports analogies because I think sometimes that, like, if you haven't played sports, then like it doesn't resonate with you. But the best one that I can think of is when I play my buddies in golf. There is nothing that I want to do more than to beat my friends in golf. I am ultra competitive against them. There is nothing that I enjoy more than beating them. But I want to beat them because I hit a 30-foot putt. I want to beat them because I hit a pressure drive. I don't want to beat them because they made a mistake. And that is the way that it is at Tennr. Oh, you hit your quota by 150%. I am going to hit it by 151%. So there is like this competitive nature amongst the sales team while all striving towards the exact same goal. And nobody wants anybody to lose. I just want to be a little bit better than you.
Yeah, I love that, the way of phrasing that. Yeah. Sam, this is great, man. I guess people can find you on LinkedIn, get creative of how to get
LinkedIn, if you want to see my videos from VTS,
yes,
my acting
that's
days,
a whole other combo.
that would be the job. If I didn't have to worry about working, I would be acting. But no, this is great. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Really appreciate it.
Yes,
dude.
sir.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Really appreciate you giving us a listen. Give us a subscribe, rating, review, follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Hope you enjoy it.